The rifle barrel pressed cold against his shoulder as Marcus Thorne held his breath, finger hovering over the trigger. Through the kitchen window's cracked glass, he watched the figure stumble across his property line, a girl in a torn blue dress that caught the dying light like scattered prayers. She shouldn't be here. No one came to the Thorne place anymore, not since Sarah died 3 winters back. The townspeople whispered that grief had turned him strange, that he talked to shadows and kept his wife's grave closer than scripture. Let them whisper. The isolation suited him fine. But this girl, she moved wrong, too careful, like someone running from more than weather. Her bare feet found every quiet spot between the loose boards of his porch, avoiding the creaks that would announce her presence to anyone listening, professional quiet. The kind that came from practice or fear. Marcus shifted his weight, and the floorboard beneath him groaned. The girl froze mid-step, one hand pressed against his front door, the other clutching something small and dark against her chest. Even through the glass, he could see her shoulders shaking, not from cold but from exhaustion that ran deeper than bone. "Don't move," he called out, voice rougher than he intended. 3 years of talking only to himself had left him unpracticed with company. The girl's head turned toward his voice, and moonlight caught her face, young, maybe 19, 20 at most. But her eyes held the kind of hollow weight that aged a person beyond counting. Blood streaked her temple, and her dress hung in tatters that spoke of violence, of running through thorns and worse. She should have run then, should have bolted back into the darkness like a spooked deer. Instead, she pressed her palm flat against his door, and spoke in a voice barely above a whisper, words that hit him like a fist to the chest. "Marcus," she said, and it was Sarah's voice, Sarah's exact inflection, the way she used to call his name when thunder shook the house, and she needed comfort. "Please." The rifle slipped in his grip. His dead wife's name hung in the air between them like smoke, impossible and undeniable. The girl's lips moved again, forming words he couldn't hear through the glass, but he didn't need to. He knew that mouth, the shape of it forming his name. 3 years dead, and Sarah was standing on his porch. Marcus stumbled backward from the window, rifle clattering against the wall. His hands shook as he pressed them against his ears, trying to block out the impossible. The girl, Sarah, whoever she was, she tapped against the door again, soft and patient. "I know you're there," came that familiar voice, muffled by wood but unmistakable. "I know you can hear me." He'd dreamed this moment 1,000 times, Sarah returning to him, whole and warm and laughing at his tears. But dreams didn't bleed. Dreams didn't wear torn dresses or carry the scent of fear and gunpowder. Marcus forced himself to think past the thundering in his chest. The girl knew his name, knew Sarah's voice, but she was flesh and bone. He could see her breath fogging in the cold air. Someone had sent her, someone who knew about Sarah, about the way she used to speak his name in the dark. Sheriff Cale, maybe. The man had been sniffing around for months, asking questions about Marcus's state of mind, about whether a man so lost in grief might be dangerous to himself or others. Or maybe it was Dr. Henley from town, the one who kept suggesting Marcus needed help with his mourning. "I can prove it's me," the girl said, and her voice cracked with exhaustion. "The scar on your shoulder, from when you fell through the barn roof. You told me it looked like a crescent moon." Marcus's hand moved involuntarily to his left shoulder, where the old wound lay hidden beneath his shirt. He'd never told anyone about that scar except, "And the night before I died," she continued, voice growing stronger, "I told you I was carrying our baby. I was going to tell you at breakfast, but the fever came too fast." The words hit him like bullets. Sarah had died in her sleep, sudden and silent, the doctor said. A fever that took her in the night while Marcus slept beside her, oblivious. She'd never mentioned a baby, never had the chance, unless she had tried to tell him, and he'd been too deep in sleep to hear. Marcus approached the door on unsteady legs. Through the frosted glass, he could see her silhouette, small and waiting. If this was Sarah, somehow impossibly, then she needed him. If it wasn't, if someone was using his dead wife's memory to trick him, behind the girl at the edge of his property, Marcus caught movement in the shadows, horses maybe 3 or 4, standing just beyond the tree line, waiting. The first shot shattered his kitchen window. Marcus dove sideways as glass rained down, pulling the girl Sarah with him as she tumbled through the door. She landed against his chest, solid and warm and trembling, her dark hair smelling of rain and terror. "They followed me," she gasped against his shoulder. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I didn't know where else to go." Another shot punched through the wall above their heads, showering them with splinters. Marcus rolled, putting his body between her and the door, and grabbed his rifle from where it had fallen. Outside, he could hear boots hitting the ground, men's voices calling orders in the darkness. "How many?" he whispered. "4." Her hand gripped his arm with desperate strength. "Maybe 5. They've been chasing me for 2 days. Who are they?" Sarah's face, because it was her face. He was certain now, every beloved detail exactly as he remembered, twisted with something between fear and shame. "The Kesler gang. I took something from them." She pressed the small dark object she'd been clutching into his palm, a leather pouch, heavy with coins, blood money, from the feel of it. 20 families' life savings, she whispered. "They robbed the bank in Millfield, killed 3 people. I couldn't let them get away with it." Marcus stared at her, understanding flooding through him like ice water. This wasn't his Sarah. His wife had been gentle, afraid of her own shadow. This girl had stolen from killers and led them straight to his door. But she had Sarah's face, Sarah's voice, Sarah's way of looking at him like he was the only solid thing in a world gone mad. Thunder crashed overhead, and rain began hammering the roof. Through the broken window, Marcus could see muzzle flashes in the darkness, hear the Kesler boys shouting over the storm. "Burn him out," someone called. "Torch the whole place." "No," came another voice, harder and colder. "The girl first, then we burn what's left." Marcus met Sarah's eyes. Whether she was ghost or stranger or miracle, she was here, and she was his to protect. He'd failed to save his wife once, he wouldn't fail again. "The root cellar," he said, hauling her to her feet. "There's a tunnel, goes out past the barn." But as they stumbled toward the kitchen, flames began licking at the window frames, and the sound of breaking wood told him the Kesler gang wasn't planning to wait for morning. In the root cellar's musty darkness, Marcus lit a stub of candle and watched Sarah's face flicker in the yellow glow. She sat on a crate of preserves, pressing a torn piece of her dress against the cut on her temple, and for a moment she looked exactly like his wife had the morning after their wedding, soft and tired and achingly beautiful. "I'm not her," Sarah said quietly, reading his expression. "I know that's what you're thinking, but I'm not your wife." Marcus nodded, throat too tight for words. Above them, boots stomped across his floor, and he could hear furniture being overturned. The Kesler boys were searching, methodical and patient. "My name is Catherine Walsh," she continued. I am Sarah's sister." The words hit him like a physical blow. Sarah had mentioned a sister once, years ago, a girl who'd run away from home when they were children, vanished into the territories. Sarah had cried the night she told him, mourning a sister she thought was dead. "She talked about you," Catherine whispered, "in her letters, the ones I never answered because I was too proud, too angry at the world to forgive her for staying while I ran." She pulled something from her pocket, a small silver locket, tarnished with age. Marcus recognized it instantly. He'd given it to Sarah on their wedding day. "I came back to visit her grave," Catherine said, opening the locket to reveal a tiny photograph of Sarah's face, smiling. 3 years too late to say goodbye. The townspeople told me she'd died of fever, that her husband had gone strange with grief. I wanted to see where she was buried, to leave this with her." Her fingers traced the locket's edge, and Marcus saw tears tracking through the dirt on her cheeks. "But the Keslers hit Millfield the day I arrived, killed a family with 3 children, Marcus, 3 babies, who'll never grow up because of men who take what they want and leave death behind." She looked up at him, and he saw Sarah's determination in her eyes, the same fierce protectiveness his wife had shown toward injured animals, toward anything weak or broken. "I couldn't let them keep that money." Not when it belonged to families like yours, like the one Sarah always wanted. Above them, the footsteps were growing fainter. Marcus checked his pocket watch. They'd been hiding for nearly an hour. The Keslers would be getting impatient, sloppy. He handed Catherine his spare pistol. The tunnel comes out behind the old oak. There's a horse trail that leads to the river. She shook her head. I won't run anymore. Sarah would want you to live. Sarah would want those children's killers to face justice. Dawn came with silence. Marcus emerged from the tunnel first, Catherine close behind, both of them moving like shadows through the morning mist. His house still stood, scorched but whole, and 4 horses stood ground-tied near his front gate. The Kesler gang had made camp in his yard, confident in their numbers, lazy with assumed victory. They never saw Marcus and Catherine coming. It was over in minutes. Tom Kesler went down trying to draw his gun. His brothers died reaching for weapons they'd never fire. The 4th man, barely more than a boy, threw down his pistol and surrendered, hands shaking as he begged for mercy. Catherine wasn't sure she had in her anymore, but when she looked at Marcus, saw the way he held his rifle steady, but didn't fire on the surrendering boy, she remembered what Sarah used to write about her husband's decency, how he'd never hurt anything that couldn't fight back. Sheriff Cale arrived with a posse 3 hours later, drawn by the distant gunshots. He found Marcus and Catherine sitting on the front porch, the stolen bank money counted and stacked between them, 4 bodies wrapped in canvas and one very young outlaw tied to a fence post and crying for his mother. Catherine Walsh, she told the sheriff when he asked her name, Sarah Thorne's sister. The sheriff's eyes flicked between her face and Marcus's, noting the resemblance, the way Marcus looked at her like she was something precious and fragile. The reward money's yours, Cale said, nodding toward the pouches of recovered cash. Kesler gangs been terrorizing 3 counties. Catherine shook her head. Send it to the families in Millfield. They need it more than I do. That afternoon, Marcus took her to Sarah's grave, a simple wooden cross under the cottonwood tree, where his wife had loved to read. Catherine knelt in the grass and placed the silver locket on the fresh-turned earth, whispering words too soft for Marcus to hear. When she stood, she looked like Sarah in the dying light, but her smile was her own. I'll stay through winter, she said, if you'll have me, help you repair the house, tend the grave. Sarah wouldn't want either of us to be alone. Marcus nodded, throat tight with gratitude and grief, and something that might have been hope. Years later, when Catherine had become the school teacher in town, and Marcus had learned to smile again, people would still talk about the night the Thorne place burned, but didn't fall, how a dead woman's sister had brought justice to killers, and peace to a grieving widower. But Marcus knew the truth was simpler than that. Sometimes the dead sent us what we needed most, not themselves, but the strength to keep living without them, and sometimes that was enough.